Welcome back to the Rated R for Action Studios. Appreciate you guys for tuning into this one. It's our AEW Dynamite review and reaction. Let's get into the show, which was an interesting one that started off with an MMA fight inside of a cage, an octagon between Wardlow and actual Bellator MMA fighter Jake Hager. Now, this is extremely strange. Now, you have the Brawl for All that happened all those years ago, right? And it was them actually hitting each other and actually boxing, which was a disaster. This one was an MMA fight, but it was worked as a wrestling match, you know, so it was a lot of planned spots, and you can just tell. Obviously, Wardlow's on an MMA fighter, so a lot of his punches and maneuvers look kind of sloppy. Jake Hager, 3-0 in Bellator, a legitimate fighter, and, you know, a collegiate champion wrestler, so he actually has the background. So this kind of hurts him and his legitimacy because he's taking on Wardlow in his territory and he should be dominating him right now. This wasn't the smartest idea by AEW to do an MMA style match because, again, they're working the match basically, so they have the spots planned out. There's a lot of kind of like waiting around when Wardlow does this Superman punch. You can see it's real set up when he jumps off the cage, and Jake Hager just kind of like, you know, telling it like, let's get it done. So
Hager's in big trouble. The teep by Wardlow sending Hager back towards the cage, and now Hager's hands are down. Hager's by his body. Hager's
done. So it really wasn't a good thing for AEW, something they probably shouldn't do again. I give them credit for actually trying something like that, but it's akin to you know, the Lions Den matches or the Brawl for All. Maybe not as bad as Brawl for All because that was actually real. This is actually just them kind of, you know, it didn't really come off that well. You know, the Hurricane Rana power bomb into the cage, and it's just, it doesn't play off well. And, you know, with the cornermen being Shawn Spears and Chris Jericho, it makes it even campier. It just wasn't a good thing. Them doing an octagon, not the right thing, especially working it like a wrestling match and having spots put into it. It's bad stuff. If you want to watch, people tune in and watch MMA, they're going to go watch MMA, not go to AEW to see MMA. Especially they want to see real MMA, not stuff that's kind of planned out in the way it is. But in the end, Hager defeats by referee stoppage. And I just found it interesting to these like an AEW referee to try to make it seem like it was like a legitimate MMA referee, which was just Aubrey Edwards. You know, it's funny stuff. It's just it doesn't make a ton of sense. Like, you know, using get a MMA referee, get you know, somebody, you know, to come and do it and make it seem a little bit more legitimate. But yeah, it wasn't a good thing. At the end, you have Shawn Spears attacking Hager in the ring. Here comes Jericho to help out, but then they beat down Jericho. Here comes MJF to attack Jericho, hurt Jericho, put Jericho in an armbar because he has a dislocated elbow. And then here comes Dean Malenko to kind of break it up. Dean Malenko obviously having some health issues, dealing with Parkinson's disease. So it heightens the dastardly move by MJF to actually hit Dean Malenko, right? Because he has those medical issues. Then here comes Sammy Guevara to kind of fend them off and fight them off and scare them off. So the Pinnacle Inner Circle thing does not want to die. It will not die. Now they're going to just go in separate singles and tags rather than have everybody 5-on-5 against each other. So, you know, that's the way they're going to do it. It is what it is, right? We just can't complain about it. They have a ton of factions in AEW. They need something for everybody to do with the limited amount of TV time they have. So this is what we're going to get, because later on you would see FTR, Santana and Ortiz cut like, you know, a video package and them talking trash to each other. That's the next fight to happen is them. The next feud to happen is obviously the tag team feud, and then we're supposed to get, for the next live edition of AEW Dynamite, I think it's the end of June, we're going to get on that Wednesday, Sammy Guevara versus MJF. So we'll get that, and then eventually the big payoff is going to be MJF versus Chris Jericho. So we'll keep going from there. All right, the next thing on the show was this handicap match, Darby Allin versus the Men of the Year. That's their name, Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. The match makes no sense. The premise of it doesn't make any sense. You can't use Sting, gotta use somebody else. I mean, what sense does that make? You would rather take on Sting by himself rather than the younger Darby Allin, even though he's smaller, but you want to take the older guy in Sting, right? Rather than the actual guy who's there all the time. So this is just, you know, Darby Allin displaying his fighting spirit in his babyface way and underdog babyface and all that stuff like that. He's taking big bumps. In the end, Page and Sky get the win. Not much to talk about, because where does the feud go from here, right? You already said, oh, okay, we want you by yourself or with a different partner, not Sting. So where do you go from here now? Honestly, like, is the feud over at this point? Where do you go from here? Because they didn't want you with Sting. So are you going to try to find a different tag team partner and then go again with this instead of a handicap match? It proves that he needs Sting. It's like a father and son duo for some reason. It's just, I don't think it's a good look, to be honest with you. I do not think it's a good look, to be honest with you, the way this is turning out. It makes, you know, Darby feel dependent on Sting like it's his dad, and he needs him to beat these guys. Doesn't make a ton of sense. It's not really good stuff. Next thing on the show was Orange Cassidy versus Cesar Bononi of the Wingmen. We have another stable in AEW. It's the Wingman. It kind of sucks. Cassidy gets the win. Nobody really cares, but now this is the feud: the Wingmen versus the Best Friends, Orange Cassidy and Chris Statlander. This is like stable versus stable. We have so many stables on the show. Let's add another one with the Wingmen, a bunch of guys nobody really cares about, and now we have them on the show. All over the place now. I guess it is what it is. Next thing on the show was Cody Rhodes and Brock Anderson versus QT Marshall and Aaron Solo. So this is Brock Anderson's first, foray into the AEW ring. And they get the win. Rhodes and Anderson get the win. It's a decent whatever match. It's just there as like a first match for Brock Anderson to have and to keep the QT Marshall and Cody Rhodes feud going, and the Factory versus the Nightmare Factory. But a lot of it nobody really cares about, right? There's two factions nobody cares about. You hyped up the match of a Go-Go versus Rhodes, and a Go-Go lost. So Rhodes has already effectively beat the leader and the second guy in command, and then he beats them here with Brock Anderson again. So technically the feud's over because this team cannot win, right? This team cannot win against the Nightmare Factory. So what's the point of them being around, right? The feud doesn't really make any sense. They've already lost all the matches. They can't do really much of anything else. They can't say much because they've lost everything. So the feud makes no sense. They should probably end it, get rid of the Factory, and build a Go-Go in a different sense and everybody else in a different way. And this is one of the things AEW does that really shows how they lack that whole, they want to jam-pack the show with everything they possibly can, and they can't let stuff kind of sit there and breathe a little bit. So you have the emotion of Brock Anderson and his father hugging in the ring with Cody there, and they just kind of cut away from it and go to a worthless video package of Lance Archer with Jake the Snake Roberts, talking about not really much of anything. Oh, he's crazy, he's big, he wants a title, he wants stuff like that. Nothing much, right? And then from that, go immediately to Andrade El Idolo talking with Jim Ross about not really much of anything. Say he wants these titles, he wants the TNT and the AEW, that's his plan. He's with Vicky Guerrero because Vicky Guerrero is like, part of the Guerrero family, and he's part of his family, and they have a lineage in Lucha Libre. So he has a surprise supposedly with Vicky Guerrero.
Because Vicky and Andrade El Idolo have surprise.
They don't let stuff breathe. They need to space this stuff out rather than just kind of jam packing it on the show just to get a bunch of stuff out there. But we got the interview with El Idolo. We'll see where he comes out and what he does next. Maybe he comes out during the Kenny Omega match and next Saturday against Jungle Boy. We could see that go down as well. But the next thing on the show here was Julia Hart versus Penelope Ford in a match that got some solid amount of time. Not a great match, but Ford gets the win. Then here comes Miro to come out and kind of help Penelope Ford out and fight off the Varsity Blondes, right, by himself. So we'll see Brian Pillman Jr. take on Miro that Wednesday, June 30th, I think it is, for that first live episode of AEW Dynamite. So that's where that's leading there. We still haven't seen Kip Sabian. He's hurt, so we'll see what happens with that later on with Penelope Ford. And then after this match, it cuts to, Britt Baker in the back with Rebel and Tony Schiavone. They get interrupted by Vicky Guerrero. Vicky Guerrero wants Nyla Rose to take on Britt Baker for the championship. And then she says, because I brought Andrade here, Tony Khan owes me a favor, a match of my choosing. And the match she chooses is a tag team match that nobody really cares about. It's Britt and Rebel versus Vicky and Nyla. So whoop-de-doo. I mean, it's a match nobody really cares about. We'll see what happens with that match going forward. But it's kind of like a wasted segment there on AEW, just trying to jam pack as many things as they can into the show. Then this will lead to the 6-man tag team main event, which is a solid match. But again, it's just more of the same with Nick and Matt, cheating to win, and then that's it. And then they kind of just reign supreme at the end of it. It's the same stuff like over and over again with the Young Bucks now. At least the Good Brothers were on Dynamite in an actual match. You got to see them here. But in the end, they used that stupid soccer cold spray to win the match. And they were sprayed in the eyes of Penta. And that's how Penta, and that's how they get the win. But it's more of the same. It's kind of more of the same thing. Just more of the same. Them cheating to win, them cheating to win, them cheating to win, them cheating to win. And then you would see, earlier in the show, you would see Kenny Omega roll up on Jungle Boy in a golf cart and kind of challenge him to a street fight in the back right now. And, they would obviously, screw him over, and Nakazawa will get involved, and Nakazawa will be the fall guy. And then, Kenny will just drive away. It's kind of just the same stuff with these guys over and over again every week. It's just more of like them cheating, them doing stuff like that, trying to be heels and that. But yeah, the Young Buck stuff is getting kind of old, to be honest with you. It's getting kind of old the way they're kind of doing it. You have Frankie Kazarian as the elite hunter, and I don't really understand if he's the Elite Hunter, just have him pick up the win here rather than the Young Bucks and the Good Brothers winning here. But these Friday night Dynamite shows have not been good. I want to see how the Saturday night one, they have the big title match, but I just don't see these matches as being good. I think they're just kind of waiting until they get back to the live Wednesday Dynamite to really kick it back into gear. But these shows have not been good. And again, the Young Bucks are still doing that same heel stuff. It's getting kind of old. That's all. It's just getting kind of old. They keep cheating to win. It's not really that much fun. But guys, that's a review and reaction of AEW Dynamite. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure to drop a like on this video, hit the chair in the corner for it hits you first, and sub to the channel. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you guys on the next one.